Hey everyone, it's Dylan from the Black Forest Wood Company. This week we're going to be showing you our process of creating this $25,000 Claro Walnut Burl dining table.
30. Oh, no, that one's good. Yeah. Let's take this one.
This is more than half of that. Yeah. So, and that, look at that piece, it's like probably half.
This client commissioned us to build a 10-foot by 5-foot dining table using some of our California Claro Walnut Burl. We first begin by picking these slabs out from our slab bay, and the step that you didn't see is we sent our client a 3D rendering showing the layout with the physical slabs that we planned on using for this table. That's something that we like to do for all of our clients prior to starting a build so they get a perfect idea of what the final product is really going to look like. Once we've got the slabs debarked, we can then cut them to the mold size just using a skill saw. These cuts aren't so precise, so that's why you don't see us using our track saw. We're still going to end up cutting the table down after it comes out of the mold. Once the burl slabs are cut to size, we can begin prepping the resin for our pour. So of course we're using our Black Forest deep resin, and then we're adding in some black dye, a pretty healthy amount of it too, because we want this base layer to turn out opaque. The reason that this client has opted for an opaque base layer is so that we can hide the plates that will mount the base to the underside of this table, and he'll just have a perfectly clean bottom on this. So once we've poured that base layer, we allow it to cure for about 48 hours, and then we can go ahead and pour our final top layer that will pour that remaining 2 inches. And what this effect does is it allows you to also see the edges of the burl while not having to see all the way through your table. With our Black Forest deep resin, it does have a very slow exothermic reaction. This is what allows us to be able to pour to these extreme depths in such large volumes, but it does mean that you have a little bit longer cure time than your typical epoxy. So we have to wait a full 7 days to allow this piece to cure, and then once that's over, we can go ahead and pop this piece out of the mold and get ready for the next steps.
Put it in there, look what wouldn't live. Fine. Doesn't hurt my feelings at all. What?
Give me a 10 seconds.
And then once the piece is demolded, we get it down onto our Avid CNC machine for flattening. So this is the final stage of flattening. We've done one already prior to this that you didn't see on the burls before we actually did the pour. And then like I said, once the pour is complete, we do another round of flattening. And in some cases, after this, we'll send the piece through our thickness sander to kind of assist us in those first grits of sanding. But because this piece is 5 feet wide, it's actually too wide to go through our 54-inch belt sander. So that just means that we have a lot of extra sanding work to do here on this piece. After the flattening, we use a track saw to cut the piece down to final size. So this is a precise cut, which is the reason we're using a track saw for this. And when you're using the Festool track saw, it is important to go in a few steps, because otherwise you're going to end up getting a lot of burn marks that are just going to result in more sanding for you to do afterwards. The next part of the process is probably one of the more time-consuming parts that we usually don't film that much of because it's very boring. But that's the fills. So especially when it comes to end grain woods like this Claro Walnut Burl, there's a lot of open pores and voids that have to get filled if you want a nice clean finish once you're done. So our first step to achieve that is actually pouring a flood coat of epoxy over the entire burls, and that fills in, I would say, 80% of the voids. But even after sanding off this layer, there's still a lot of small voids that we have to go in and fill individually. Once we have our fills complete, we can then go ahead and route out the pockets that's going to allow the X base to be assembled to the underside of the dining table. This is another advantage of the base layer. Usually these pockets are visible if you do a completely clear pour, but as you can see inside the pockets, we only have the solid black resin, so no one is ever going to be able to see where these pockets are. And then after the piece is sanded up to 320 grit, we can take it over to our finishers for them to start spraying on the acrylic urethane. So for a piece like this with the burl, like I mentioned, it has so many pores and so many voids that have to end up getting filled. This also means it's going to require many more coats of urethane than a typical table would. I think Toe, the spray finisher here in the video, ends up spraying about 6 or 7 coats in total on this piece, and in between each coat he's sanding it down, he's filling in any small voids that appeared, and then spraying another coat over top. So it's a very time consuming and labor intensive process, but the end result, as you'll see, is a glass-like finish on the entire surface of this table. This client opted for one of our signature X bases. This is something that we've been offering for probably about 3 or 4 years now, and it's quickly become one of our most popular base options. I think what clients really like about it is it allows for ample seating arrangements all the way around the table. Like, there's not really anywhere that you're going to get seated where your knees are going to end up hitting the base, and it's also very sturdy at the same time, so you don't have to worry about, you know, a tippy table or a wobbly table or anything like that. We do cut the joinery for this base using our CNC machine, so we have a program for a few different sizes, and oftentimes we have to write completely new programs whenever there's a size of table that doesn't quite fit the size of base that we already have. Once we've got our joinery cut, we can use Titebond 3 to assemble this base together, and we also use some wood dowels just to help with alignment and give a little bit more strength. Then once the base is all glued up, we can go ahead and start applying a black General Finishes dye stain. We use this because it just gives a really nice consistent black finish to the wood while still showing through some of that natural grain of the ash. And then once we have that stain completely cured and dried, which usually takes about a week, we can apply 2 coats of our Black Forest furniture oil just to increase the sheen of the base. Recently, we've started doing an additional step in our finishing process, and that's after the spray coating, we're doing a round of polishing to help increase the sheen and just get a more even surface over top of the entire table. It's also something that we kind of took out of the automotive finishing world, just like our ceramic coating. On lots of the high-end vehicles that you see, they never usually just have the finish right off the spray. They're detailing and buffing and polishing the outside of the vehicle to get it looking completely perfect before they go ahead and apply their final ceramic coating. So that's what we've started doing, and it just allows for a much more clean, perfect, and consistent surface. After the piece is finished, we can go ahead and start assembling the base onto the underside of the table. So we first start with our 6mm solid steel laser cut plates from Forge 53 that we screw into the top of the X base. So what the boys are doing right now is laying out where we want the base to go, because we're then going to have to mark out where we can screw those plates into the top side of the base. From there, we can get the plates flipped over and screw them into the top side of the base. One thing you'll notice on the plates as well is that our holes that attach to the tabletop are slotted. This is to allow for any expansion and contraction that we might experience with the tabletop. So in that case, the top is essentially free to move within the slots, whereas if you had holes that were the exact size of your threaded insert, there wouldn't be anywhere for that table to move, and you could end up with a crack in the wood. And just like we did for the top of the legs, we're going to go ahead and lift the base on so that we can punch out where our threaded inserts are going to go. This is a very nerve-wracking part of the process for us to do with the piece already being finished, and if we had the option we would have done this before it was finished, but we did not have the steel plates yet at this time. And as you can see here, even with 3 people, this is not an easy base to move. We construct this base from solid Canadian ash with a blackened finish on it, so it is real wood. You know, a lot of people see these black stained bases and they don't think it looks like real wood, but it is, and in my opinion it actually goes better with this table having the black stain as opposed to having the natural ash, because it ties in really nice with the resin. And then you can see we're installing our Rampa threaded inserts. The reason we like a threaded insert is just because it allows you to assemble and take apart the table as many times as you need to without ever stripping out any of those holes. And then we round up just about everyone in the back shop to lift this table onto its base. We can get the threaded insert screwed in, clean off some of the dust, and begin to get a look at the finished product. So again, this dining table is California Claro Walnut Burl that we used over 150 liters of our Black Forest Deep resin to create. You can also go and watch a YouTube video where you can see the process of us milling up this Claro Walnut Burl with our friend Jerry. He came out to our shop here in Calgary. We cut it all up using his chainsaw mill. We got them dried here in Calgary, and now we're building beautiful furniture from these pieces. So please let us know what you guys think about this piece. There was a ton of hours that went into it, and we've got it shipped off now to our client, so we're waiting to hear what he thinks about it. But thank you so much for watching and making it to the end of the video, and we'll see you next week. Of the epoxy black dye into the base